Warner Brothers Discovery lied about Henry Cavill. Well, let's dig into this. So there was a bit of a Twitter storm with, you guessed it, James Gunn. And here we have it all summarized here by The Direct. DC Studios' James Gunn addressed fan speculation of DCU's Superman Legacy was originally Man of Steel 2, which I kind of thought maybe that was the case, that he could have crafted his approach to Superman for Henry Cavill, but they decided, oh, God, we can't afford Henry. So that's kind of what I was thinking. And it might still be the case. But here... he goes into more details. Says, ahead of the announcement of the slate of DCU's Chapter 1, Gunn already confirmed that Henry would no longer be Superman in the rebooted franchise. Instead, a younger actor would be for the new movie. The announcement led to emotional tributes for Cavill's co-stars and fans and all that, and one of his latest Instagram stories, I thought it was on Twitter. Okay, Instagram stories, DC Studios CEO, co-CEO James Gunn reacted to a headline claiming that Creatures Commandos was one of the studio's first DCU projects now in production. Was being fast-tracked. Gunn clarified that Creature Commandos and also Superman Legacy were both in development before he and Peter Safran took over as the studio's chiefs in October 2022. Well, now Creature Commandos I assumed was true, and I seem to recall him saying he had been working on his Superman script for a while, at around the time he had announced that, Henry Cavill won't be Superman anymore. So was the script always about another Superman or, a younger one or what have you? And that appears to be the case. Henry Cavill returned on screen as Superman in Black Adam October during a time when Warner Brothers was also developing a Cavill-led Man of Steel sequel. So was Man of Steel 2 a separate project from Gunn's own Superman Legacy? Yes, according to the current studio executive, who stated on Twitter that Legacy was always a separate project. So what? One of them was going to be the Elseworlds. So, when asked if it had any connection to Cavill's Superman sequel, which is now completely scrapped, another fan pointed out how previous assumptions would have led to confusion among the franchise, to which Gunn noted that he was hired to write Superman Legacy over 6 months ago. So he was always going to be working on a Superman project, whether he got the top job or not. So then this, so he's developing his Superman before Henry. Yeah, well, I assumed that was the case too. I just didn't know if he was going to write a Superman script. As to who would play that Superman. A few tweaks here and there, you could make it Henry Cavill. I mean, that's, scripts being what they are, they almost are never what the final product is. I mean, the plot or what have you is, but, there's changes aplenty for things like that. But then we get to, what about all this deception? Well, of course, they wanted people excited about Black Adam and said, we leaked that there's a Superman cameo. And so, that was to give it a boost beyond what it ordinarily would have had, and all that. And I'm sure if Black Adam had soared to the stratosphere, this would have changed things quite a bit, and Henry would more than likely still be Superman. But I don't know that I would have cared for Dwayne Johnson's the whole DC universe is all about Black Adam and that sort of thing. That's wasn't crazy about that. And no involvement with the Shazam property, which doesn't make any sense for the character. But anyway, so DCU needs a fresh start, and Superman Legacy, blah, 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 is going to be the anchor for it. Still learning that James Gunn is developing Superman movie before Henry Cavill cameo is unfortunate for the actor. Well, yeah, I mean, he was led to believe this. He goes out and announced, I'm coming back. And, there was a faction there. What was it? DeLuca and Abdi seemed to be for this idea, for a Man of Steel 2. And they were going in that direction. But I guess someone ran the numbers, is what I'm thinking. And say, we can't do that. And we can't, the odd, we're going to have, at 2025 is the earliest we can debut a Superman movie. And that might have been, that's just too long down the road for Henry. There's that idea. And also, because then, he's that much more older, into his 40s, and whatever they want to do for this 10-year plan, I think they could have done it with him. I mean, the guy's in excellent shape and all this stuff. But, I'm sure that was a factor. And also his pay and his status and where he is and his popularity. And they think, well, it would be a lot cheaper with a new young actor. And probably an unknown, So that stands to reason as the thinking. But did they already know this? Were they lying to him to get him to do this cameo? And these other cameos he shot, which I guess we'll never see. Apparently those are going to be cut out of The Flash. And I think maybe there was one for Aquaman. I can't remember. But certainly The Flash. But they may have cut that out. And it's just, he still had to pay him for that. And he just did it for... I think it's all very chaotic and a bit of a mess, and they didn't quite know where they were going to go with all of this. And if it is something very nice, like the debt for Warner Brothers was a lot steeper than even Zaslav knew as they went further, then that's a really embarrassing thing that they're not going to publicly admit. So that's kind of where they're stuck. So anyway, remains to be seen if Cavill will return as a new character in Gunn and Safran's DCU. With this new development may suggest that an option for a comeback would not be in the cards for the actor, especially after this latest reveal. Well, he probably knows a little bit more than the rest of us on that after they had their meeting and told him the situation. And Henry's very good at being quiet. It's sad. It's not right. I really wanted to see him back as Superman. And these kind of shenanigans happen as to whether it was a plot all along and that kind of thing. Not entirely certain, but it certainly it sounds like it, since he says it was a separate film. That they weren't going to write Superman Legacy as a Man of Steel 2. And that's like, well, other people are working on a Man of Steel 2 at the same time, and and then there's still J.J. Abrams stuff was supposedly still going. And then ultimately they opted to go with Gunn's version rather than a Man of Steel 2. But the idea that was hinging on a Black Adam film, it's just not fair. Black Adam, even if that was I enjoyed the movie okay. It's got problems with it. It's not that great. But even if it had been a lot better, it's a character no one knows. It's just like, well, everybody knows The Rock. Yeah, but that just wasn't enough. And it's a bit of a too big of a task, a burden to place on it. And why Henry Cavill has to pay that price. The only thing I can think of is he's too pricey. That's the only thing I can think of. Because yes, the age is the factor to some extent, but I don't think enough to cause all this anguish and whatnot. And it's always gonna be a bit of a sting going forward. You think, hey, maybe the tempers will have cooled by 2025. Yeah, maybe, but. And it could be like a certain amount of just circumstances, and that's the way it is. But a lot of people are going to be very upset and very angry at this and feel like they got screwed, and that Gunn's going to get more #Fire James Gunn stuff before he's actually even done anything. So I don't think that's in the cards either, at least not yet. But man, I keep saying this, he's got quite a Mount Everest hill to climb for this thing to take off with the fan base, certainly. And even, your core fan base can't support everything because you need the overall movie-going audience, but they do generate the excitement and hype for something. And if you lose your base, then you flounder. So this sort of thing, it's not good. But and that's the thing. If you could just be honest and say, well, look, it's the way it is. It's the money. This is where the situation we've inherited. Where we would have gone with Henry, but we can't. And they can't. They just never going to admit something like that. So, but anyway, so I guess Gunn ended up being the last man standing as far as Zaslav's decisions went, and he's the money guy, and he looked at this is the cheaper way to go, and that's the situation they're in. So it's sad. It's not what I like, but if that's the main decider, if that was the main decider, then I can respect that. I can't respect it if they were misleading people for a cheap boost for Black Adam and plus luring Henry Cavill into this. So that stuff about him coming back and playing some other character, unless he really needs the work, I don't know. That might so that's the rotten part of it. If they really did know that and there was no real intention for Man of Steel 2, then that's also pretty rotten.